Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Well, photography would be among the top 5 things in my life, I think. Photography, writing, our kids, music, and place in the largest sense, I think. And photography has been in my life for a long time. Like I grew up on a small farm in Saskatchewan, in the prairies of Canada. And an early Christmas gift I got from my parents was a camera. And I guess they knew me better than I knew myself, because sure enough, I turned out to really, really love taking photographs. This was long before digital cameras, of course. So I had to take pictures, and then because we were on a farm, I had to mail them away, and it would take 3 weeks for them to come back. And then when I got them back, I would study them and I'd figure out what worked, what didn't work. And I loved doing that. I mean, I still have photographs from that long ago, and I loved taking photographs of the sky and of the landscape. I don't know if you've ever been out to the prairies of Canada, but they are flat and majestic and bleak in the winter. They change so much. I just loved taking photographs of it. I think it connects to my very long-standing interest in memory. And I don't just mean that, we all think about our memories, but, it's fascinated me when I was teaching English literature courses at a university. I designed a course called Literature and Memory, or something like that. And, it was all about texts that have a particular connection to memory. Proust's In Remembrance of Things Past, things like that. There's another really interesting short story by Borges called Funes the Memorious, which is about a man who has an incredible memory, and so much so that he can't generalize. He's never been able to generalize. And it becomes a problem for him, because everything that he experiences becomes like a distinct event. So those kinds of things have always fascinated me. And photography is a way of kind of capturing memory, but in another way, making us realize how distorted our memories can become. Because maybe I don't look at a photograph for a number of years, and then I finally do, and I go, oh, that's not how I was remembering it. At the same time, a photograph isn't just an accurate portrayal of reality either. It depends on the camera lens and the lighting and framing and so many things like that. More and more about how one edits the photographs after one takes it. And of course, with things like DALL-E, the artificial intelligence, that's changing things even more so. So yeah, I guess to go back what I was saying at the beginning, photography is really, really, really important to me. I can't imagine having a life in which I didn't do that daily. In fact, today I forgot to bring my camera with me to work, and there were so many things along the way that I thought, oh, I wish I had my camera. I want to take a picture of this or that.
Okay. Okay. Oh man, I love it. Mark Morton, the train came in. Mark Morton came in, and I love it. Look, big breath. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. I love how everybody answers the question a little differently. Everybody has a different relationship. We're just meeting for the first time. I did not research you. I did not look at the photographs. We're just meeting. Mark Morton, you're Canadian.
Yeah.
I'm Canadian. I'm from Montreal. Where are you right now?
Right now I'm in Kitchener, which is about an hour outside of Toronto.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So I've been to Kitchener. I have not been. You started speaking about the prairies and the big sky and the landscape, and I haven't been.
Yeah.
but that's what I know, right? I know about that part of the place. And there's something really comforting in, in how you speak, in your accent, in the
Mm.
cadence of your words and all this stuff. It's like it's like, come on, brother. Look, listen, we only have an hour. It's gonna go by really
Yeah.
quickly, and I want to get to your photo.
Sure.
So should we go into your first photo?
Yeah. Yeah. Which do you have them in a particular order or just?
Well, I have them in my folder, and I'm looking at them now. So the first one is okay. So it's a photo of it's a beautiful shot of four kids and a very young looking mother, maybe.
Okay. Yeah.
There's it's an outdoor shot. It's a
Yep.
beautiful portrait of there's a boy. Well, first of all, the mother's in the middle.
Yeah.
I guess I'm assuming she's a mother,
Yeah. That's my wife.
holding arms around the four kids,
Yep.
two boys, two girls. Everybody's looking really bright and happy.
Hmm.
It could, if I were to guess where, it'd be like a photo on a deck by Thousand Islands. If I'm just gonna say it.
No, but you're close. Um, this is, I guess, the other side of Toronto. This was at Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay has
Okay.
the Canadian Shield, and Thunder Bay itself has kind of a famous mountain, Mount McKay. It's called. It's an old volcano, whatever those things are called, and you can go up to the very top, and it's a beautiful look down at the city and at Lake Superior. It's an amazing place to go up to, and this
Well.
photograph, I would say this is like my wife and I adopted all four of our kids, and we
Okay.
adopted the two eldest ones here first, Brandon and Leica, and the two younger ones here, Matthew and Roxana. We adopted later, and this is probably the first time that we drove out to Saskatchewan with the younger twins, with Matthew and
Mm-hmm.
Roxana. So it was a really important trip because it was the first time that my siblings, I have many siblings, got to meet Roxana and Matthew, and
Mm-hmm.
long trips in a car. I mean, they can be awful, but my wife and I tried to make it really enjoyable. Like, we didn't push ourselves every day. We would drive maybe 4 or 5 hours every day, and we'd stop at
Mm-hmm.
almost every beach and take lots of
Wow.
photographs. So yeah, this is important because, as I was saying, family is really important to me, and I love our kids. And adopting for older kids, I mean, let's face it. If kids get adopted at an older age, it's because they've experienced some awful things. That's taken them,
Right.
why they've been apprehended from their birth family. So all of our kids had trauma to deal with and things like that. And so,
Oh, Mark.
yeah, it was the hardest thing we have ever done in our lives by far. Sometimes came close
Twice.
to just saying, "Oh, can we do this?" But we're both stubborn,
Mm-hmm.
my wife and I. And it's also the greatest thing that we have ever done,
Mm-hmm.
because I was just saying this to somebody I work with today. There's something about an adoptive, relationship when it turns out well, and it always doesn't always. It's a
Yeah.
special kind of bond because the parents know and the kids know that it didn't have to be. That we
Right.
chose them and they chose us. They were older kids, so they had a say in things.
Oh, wow.
And it's it's a really special kind of love, I think. No better or worse than any other kind of love, but it's a different kind of love, I think, than what is found between parents with their biological children. And I'm coming at this from
Mm-hmm.
another direction too, because my parents adopted kids, and one of my sisters. So
Mm-hmm.
it's built into my DNA, so to speak.
Mm.
There's so many kids in Ontario right now. How many people are in Ontario? 6 million or something like that. At any given time, there are about 10,000 children who are crown wards. And the older ones rarely will get adopted. I mean, they'll grow up in
Mm-hmm.
institutions or foster homes, things like that, and they won't have parents. And that is so hard to it's so hard to thrive in that kind of
Yeah.
situation.
No, of course. So, like, here's the joy for me of this podcast is I don't know who I'm going to
Yeah.
meet. I don't know where the conversation is going to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
And these bombs kind of land. And like one of them is, you started off, you mentioned the landscape of growing up in the
Hmm.
prairies. And my brain was kind of like, okay, I kind of think I know where we're
Hmm.
going. And then it happens always that, the photographs are interesting. Like, 'cause, like in your life, these are like signposts or
Hmm.
whatever. And so, and then as an external person for myself who reads into this photo, and so as you're telling this story, which says so much about you. And okay, first of all, what's your wife's name? Are we allowed to
Oh yeah,
say it?
yeah, yeah.
Melanie.
Melanie. Yeah.
Okay, so Melanie and you are a special kind of couple, special kind of people, because to adopt older kids, whoa, that's like that's intense. And so in this photograph, yeah, like when I look at it at first, I say, okay, I see four kids, everybody's smiling, it looks really
Yeah.
warm. And then, so the younger kids are
Hmm.
twins, and I would have guessed
Yeah.
twins. And then, because, they have certain common features, and there's this closeness. It's a really intense
Yeah.
photograph. And then there's you telling what's around that. Yeah, like Mark, this is a strong way to start the conversation.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Okay, but you also said you're a teacher at the university and you teach
Yeah.
English.
Well, I used to teach English literature, 16th century English literature. And then a few years ago, well, some years ago, I switched over to work in a teaching center. So my job for the past number of
Mm.
years has been to help professors learn how to teach more effectively. Because most of them
Oh wow,
don't get any training. They're just dropped down into a classroom and said, "Here, teach." So
yeah.
they want to learn. They want to become as good at teaching as they can, and so that's what I do.
Which says a lot about what your brain
Yep.
is like, what kind of person you are. Just in terms of, I asked you the simple question, well, what does photography mean to you? And I'm like, here comes the train, boop, boop, and then you come in, and I'm just like, okay, Mark, like, whoa, it's just, and what's beautiful is that you're covering this incredible ground. Now I want to say, how many dogs do you have in your house?
We have four dogs.
Ah, me too. What is it? Canadians with four
Really?
dogs. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I assume you said that your wife and kids may be arriving, and when they do, I might hear some barking. Yeah,
This is them arriving now, so it'll probably take them another 2 minutes to get in, and
all good, all good. So we can either stay on this photo, stay on this topic, if you want to say a bit more about this. Really, I mean, profound. Most humans, most couples, most parents, most families aren't like yours,
no.
and so what's that switch in your brain that says, okay, let's adopt two kids, and then let's adopt two more kids?
Yeah, well, I remember, like I mentioned, I grew up with adopted brothers,
Yeah.
and in fact, we're First Nations or Indigenous
Okay.
brothers. When I grew up, they were still the term Indian was still
Yeah.
used, but not
Sure.
anymore in Canada. And now, I mean, that's come to be known as the '60s scoop, and the government, swooped in and, in lots and lots of cases, inappropriately took Indigenous
Oh.
children from their Indigenous parents. At the same time, again, because of 400 years of oppression and cultural genocide and things like that, Indigenous communities were struggling with raising their
Yeah.
children. And so people like my parents, you know, amazing people, the best people I've ever known. I mean, they've passed away now. But I asked my mom once, and I remember it was my father had actually just gone into emergency at the hospital because he had tachycardia. So his heart rate was at over
Mm-hmm.
200 beats per minute. And we thought he was going to die. And I don't know why. I said to my mom, so why did you and dad, what made you decide to adopt children? And her answer was so simple. It just blew me away. She said, because there was such a need, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I thought, oh man, that's,
Wow.
how can you have a better response than that? And so that's,
Wow.
I think, what motivated, My wife and I, just that need,
Mm-hmm.
trying to help.
Yeah.
I'll mention one other thing too. Like my wife grew up as a Mennonite, and are you
Okay.
familiar with Mennonites? Sort of.
No.
Well, I'll say a little bit about it. It falls into the broader category of Anabaptist Christians, and Mennonites traditionally have been very service oriented. Social justice
Right.
is incredibly important to them. Pacifism. For many centuries, they were also persecuted. Run from one country to another in Europe, and some eventually had to go to South America, and then some came to Canada, of course. And so that aspect of being Mennonite, when I married into her family and we started going to a Mennonite church, I also found being Mennonite and the values of being Mennonite to be really, really conducive to myself. That
Mm-hmm.
idea of being a servant to others,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and if we can help, we have to help. You know,
Right.
Downstairs on our wall, one of our kids, I think it's our youngest kid, wrote on a chalkboard. She said, "If you can't help 1,000, just help one. Just
Right.
start someplace. Don't let yourself feel overwhelmed."
Right. Now, I'm going to take that as the perfect segue to, first of all, it's a beautiful statement. Such a beautiful statement.
Mhm.
And we could totally get lost. Not lost. We could totally get immersed
For
in,
sure.
in all of that. But we have to look at the next photo.
Okay, let's do that.
Oh, this is great. I love this. Okay, so yes, you've been making photographs a long time.
Yeah.
So it's a photograph of yeah, the colors are all a little bit tweaked with
Hmm.
Photoshop or filters or whatever. But there's this beautiful black youngish dog, probably like 1 or 2 or 3 years old,
Yeah.
with a pink collar,
Yeah.
and it's like a I don't know if it's a purebred, but it looks like a nice black, beautiful mongrel, all
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
But the hair is kind of silvery because of the way the photo has been exposed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then that's in the foreground. And in the background is like a wicker couch.
Hmm.
And on the wicker couch is this sweet little girl who's perfectly framed under the jaw of this dog.
Yeah.
Mark Morton, what is this? Beyond being a fantastic image,
Oh, well,
what
thank
is
you.
this?
Thank you. Yeah, I like it too. Well, this is our dog Layla, and you're right. She was about
Mm-hmm.
3 years old at this time, and sort of under her chin in the background is our daughter Roxana, and
Mm.
I love it as a photograph, like as a quote unquote work of
Yep.
art, let's say, because of the colors and because of how Layla the dog's fur is so black that it becomes blue almost.
Yeah. And silvery too, with how it catches the
Silvery,
light.
yeah.
And yeah, but yeah, almost blue. You're right.
And her gaze, you can see her eye, that's
Mm-hmm.
what she was looking out the window at. And I like how there's such a definite foreground and background in it.
Yep.
And that kind of framing, I mean, those are the kind of moments that I look for, because I love
Mm-hmm.
to go through the world every day looking for wonder, looking for moments of
Right.
wonder. And they're all around us all the time. But we have to pause and let ourselves see them, let ourselves find them. And yeah, camera can help one do that.
Yeah. What I didn't point, I have to interrupt just a second because
Hmm.
what I didn't point out is, so you've got the bluish black,
Hmm.
bluish silvery black of your
Yeah.
dog, and then in the background, your daughter is wearing a yellow
Yeah.
T-shirt, and then she's got socks with these like pink tips on the
Yeah.
toes,
Yeah.
which are echoed in the pink of the collar of your
I
dog,
never noticed that.
and then the wall is yellow, just like the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Then there's the wicker, which is kind of brown and
Hmm.
warm, and then there's like the small. You can just see the hints of a small either step ladder, step foot thing, or
Yeah.
stool or something. And as you say, your dog's gaze, Layla, right?
Layla.
The gaze is just neutral and open and looking forward, and it's just as an image, it's stunning.
Hmm.
And then knowing, well, your dogs are rescues, I
Yes,
assume.
they are. Yeah. And, the other thing is that just connecting this back to our four adopted children, like my wife and I always had four dogs, even before we
Okay.
adopted kids. But after we adopted kids, we realized how important, well, two things absolutely crucial. Anytime we're asked to talk to people who are thinking about adoption, I say there's two things. One is take lots of photographs because you have to
Mm-hmm.
make up those memories and then look at the photographs with the kids, constantly. The
Yep.
other thing is having dogs because dogs, unconditional love, and also with four
Yeah.
kids, four dogs, each of our kids felt like he or she could adopt one of the dogs. And our original
Okay.
dogs are, have passed by, but we've replaced them with new ones.
Yeah.
But we owe such a debt to those dogs. Like I come close to tearing up when I think about how much we owe them in helping
Mm-hmm.
our kids get over so much trauma, so much PTSD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in terms of this set, or actually across the podcast, there have been a few people, like yeah, a good cluster of people who have brought photos of their
Yeah.
dogs into the
Hmm.
episodes, and then I absolutely, and this is good. This is actually really, you're exactly the right person to answer this question.
Okay.
Okay. So there's this sense of, in a ways, there's a simplicity. Like people who don't have dogs just think a dog's a dog. It's all the
Yeah.
same. But you and I both know that each dog is a completely different
Yeah.
being unto
Yeah.
itself. Totally different personality, totally different character, all the important big
Hmm.
stuff. And yet simplified in a way that is so
Hmm.
therapeutic. Yeah, that's so. Believe it or not, that's my
Yep.
question.
Yep.
Take it from there.
I totally agree. Like not just for like kids of all sorts, adopted kids or non-adopted kids, but also at the other end of things with elderly people. We have gone to some residences for elderly people, different stages of needing care. And some of the homes, some of these residences had a dog in them. And it was just so
Mm.
great. The elderly people, most of them anyway, they just love having a dog around.
Yep.
And we also, with one of our dogs, with one of our first dogs, Eccles, we took her to a program offered by St. John's Ambulance, in which the dog gets assessed in order to see if we could take the dog into senior citizens' residence
Right.
so that they can interact. And
Yeah, you need the right character.
exactly, and usually what St. John's Ambulance is concerned about is a dog being sufficiently calm and gentle. Well,
Yeah.
they decided that Eccles was too calm. They wanted something. They wanted an animal that was a little bit more. I don't know. I think she would have done a great job, but you know, that was
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I say often to people that I really believe this. I think a big part of the reason why we are here as humans on this planet in this universe is for dogs and dogs for us.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think one of the great, I mean, I'm going to say humans invented dogs, and I know that we didn't invent wolves and so on, but we did invent dogs in the sense that we domesticated them over the course of tens of thousands of years. And it's the
Yeah.
best thing we've ever done. It's the best that humans have ever done.
Right. Because of what what you had said earlier, and the direction that I was projecting, I thought you were going to say service.
Mm.
And in a way, like, so what you don't know about me is that a big part of my life has been to train and teach and coach on this thing called service network
Hmm.
leadership, right, in a
Yep.
professional sense. And we don't mean that service is like
Yeah.
customer service. We mean that service is the energy between
Yep.
two people. So a newborn gives a newborn
Yep.
service. A dog gives a dog
Hmm.
service. And a child gives a child service back to the
Hmm.
dog.
Hmm.
So your home is a service
Yep.
network, and it's got its own dynamics. And so how much of your world and life, because of your
Hmm.
children, is like a kind of I don't want to say
Hmm.
mediator, but a kind of a guide. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're guiding
Yeah.
them, and dogs as well as your children, as well as yourselves, to like through like to navigate right through your days and your conditions and the growth.
Well, I would say that I mean all parents do that, of course, but again, the thing about adopting older kids is they've been through so much, and then there are other complexities that I haven't referred to, which things like one of our adopted children has wanted and continues to want to be in touch with his biological family, or certainly his biological grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get these complexities.
Yep.
It's not just a, it becomes like not just a network, but sometimes like a snakes and ladders game, trying to
Okay.
navigate all these things. And it's hard for everybody. It's hard for our kids because Matthew wants to be in touch and has been in touch with his birth family, and his birth sister, Roxana, doesn't want to have anything to do with them, and so that can create tension
Mm-hmm.
between them. So, I mean, one good thing is that my wife has training as and has worked as a mediator, as a conflict resolution, you
Okay.
know,
Oh
and
wow.
so she's got lots of skills that I don't think I have,
Amazing.
which have been really helpful in guiding the kids through things, because it's so easy to
Yep.
fall into old patterns of dealing with challenges or conflict, which is often just escalation,
Yeah.
and finding new patterns is hard, but I mean, it's the only way forward.
Wow, Mark. Yeah. So right now it's evening for you. It's
Yeah,
morning for me. Like last week's episode was full on. So first of all, no, I want to say congratulations and welcome because this is season 5. So
excellent.
you're one of the first episodes in
Great.
season 5. Yeah, you're blowing my mind. Aha. Okay. Yeah. So just like the other image, I love the play of composition, right? So the previous image had really interesting composition, and the colors were a little bit
Hmm.
fantastic, right? Because it's not a purely representative of what how we see with our eyes,
Hmm.
regularly. And then in this photo, it's a photo of a
Hmm.
reflection of a window, and so you can just barely see the window frame. It's like double glass window, so the reflection is really nice and bright. Outside is
Hmm.
super sunny. The sky is blue. There are these white clouds. There's this tree that's got no leaves on it, so this must
Yep.
be spring,
Yep. It
I
must.
imagine. And it's the reflection of a backyard of sorts because there's like sort of a railing, like a sort of for maybe vine leaves. It's hard to know what you're
Yep.
really looking at, and you can just tell like parasols. There's a deck. There 3 people sit at a table. 4 people, a couple of parasols. It's a nice day. Maybe it's in Ontario. Who knows? What I love the fact that you chose it, and it's almost got this Dali-esque, surrealist kind of thing where your brain's like, okay, what
Yeah.
am I looking at? This doesn't make sense. It's very colorful. It's very playful. It's alive. It's bright, but it's also got this surreal element to it.
I think you
Mark, why and
well, I
what?
think you've described it really, really well. What I like about it, I mean, I think a lot of people might look at this and go, "What an awful photograph! Like, this is not a photograph of anything."
Nope. This
Well,
is
I do
great.
like
It's
what I
great.
like about it, sort of at a abstract level or a conceptual level, is there's all these layers in it. So you have the sky layer, you have the cloud layer, you
Mm-hmm.
have the window itself layer, and then within the window you've got the layer of the tree and the layer of the umbrellas, as you said. And I like that as an idea because, again, that's how I see life. There are so many layers. No, no, we don't
Mm-hmm.
exist just on a single flat plane, Euclidean plane, or anything like that. Every human has all kinds of layers, and sometimes we show these layers, and sometimes these ones. Same kind of thing here. I mean, one can focus on this layer, or you can focus on a different layer. So it's kind of, to me, almost like an interactive photo, because you can choose what you
Mm-hmm.
want to focus on, what you want to see.
Like, it's the whole thing of mirrors and windows. So what you've actually done is you made a photograph of a window, and the reality of the photograph is you can tell by the window frame that you could
Hmm.
just make it out, and but then there's that whole reality of, well, what's actually
Yeah,
behind the reflection, and it's hard to tell
yeah,
what's in the room.
yeah.
So I'm a shit host because what I do is I interrupt my guests. So
No, it's a great back and forth. Well, this was actually in not far from Kitchener Waterloo, where I am, is another city called Guelph, and Guelph is a beautiful, by Canadian standards, old city. And the best thing, they've kept
Mm.
lots and lots of their beautiful old buildings, whereas Kitchener has, I think, not retained a lot of their architecture.
For the people who don't know Canada, who don't know whatever, Guelph. I haven't been to. Have I? I don't know. Maybe I've been. Do you know the etymology of the name?
A little bit, like
Because it's the ugliest word if you think about
it
it.
is.
Guelph. I just walked in the street and stepped in some
It
Guelph.
doesn't sound like it, but I believe it's actually Italian, and it goes back, see, to the Reformation, when there was two houses in Italy. I mean houses in the sense of dynasties, sort of. There were the Guelphs
Yeah.
and there were the Ghibellines, and one supported the Pope and one didn't support the Pope. I forget which one. Which one.
Hmm.
And I think there's quite a number of people from Italy in Guelph.
Hmm.
And it's this is a bit of a tangent, but it's really strange in Canada how some cities just attract people from one country. Like Thunder Bay, I mentioned that
Yeah.
earlier on. Thunder Bay has a tremendous proportion of people from Italy. Why they ended up there,
Okay.
I don't know. Winnipeg,
Weird.
tremendous number of people from Iceland. In fact, there are more people living around Winnipeg and in Manitoba from Iceland, like with Icelandic roots, than there are in Iceland. So, anyways, that was just a little digression there.
That's very
Yeah,
strange. Yeah. So back to the photo, if you
yeah.
like. So why did you choose this one, other than the fact that it's got this amazing visual
Well,
play?
yeah, that idea of layers is really important to me. Like when sometimes I take photographs and they are just like it's a nice image. I don't take a lot of
Hmm.
photographs of I don't know, flowers or things like that, but sometimes it's just so beautiful. I like taking pictures of snow as well. Um,
Hmm.
and other times I take photographs because they are complex in an
Yep.
abstract way, and I like what they say about reality.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Where did you study?
Where did I study? Well, I did my undergraduate at the University of Regina in Saskatchewan. And
Hmm.
then for my master degree and PhD, I went to the University of Toronto.
Ah.
That's where I focused on 16th century, actually 16th century non-dramatic English literature. And
Huh.
University of Toronto, the downtown campus is also really nice because it has a
Stunning.
number of beautiful old buildings, vine covered. I really enjoyed
Yep.
enjoyed that. And this was a cafe, actually. This photograph in Guelph.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, your ex professor, current professor, you're teaching teachers how to teach.
Yep. Yep.
You've done the long, difficult road of getting a doctoral, doing the doctoral thesis of, which is a very lonely road, right?
Mhm.
It's a
It is.
very that of the writer.
Hmm.
So I know that there's that in your makeup.
Hmm.
You're a visually oriented person, clearly,
Hmm.
because your photographs just scream it. And so, yeah, so being a teacher or an instructor, either for your children or for your dogs or
Hmm.
for graduates or for other teachers,
Yep.
yeah, is a service.
Hmm.
Okay,
But can I throw one idea in here?
please.
When you mentioned I'm visually oriented, I do like to think that I am, but I also have prosopagnosia, which is face blindness, right?
Okay.
So if we met, or yeah, let's say we met in person, we could talk for 2 hours. Let's say I left, and then we ran into each other in the street. I wouldn't recognize you. I
Ah,
can't remember faces.
wow.
I can only remember faces with great difficulty and with very deliberate kind of piecing together.
Right.
somebody's face.
When did you get diagnosed with that? Like, what is all your life?
All my life, but the time that I started to notice it was when I was an undergraduate, and I started going to a lot of films, a lot of movies, and so I'd be leading over to the person I was with. So who's that? And they'd say, "Well,
Mm.
that's the main character."
Oh
But the main
well.
character had gone off screen and come back dressed in something else, and I wouldn't recognize them.
Huh.
So I knew that there was something odd. And then there was the writer and psychiatrist Oliver Sacks.
Yep.
His best known book is "The Man Who Mistook His Wife
For a hat.
for his hat."
Yeah.
He wrote about very interesting, curious
Hmm.
neurologically atypical people, and he himself he's passed away now. He had prosopagnosia, and so that's where I first learned that this was an actual thing.
Yeah.
And so I did some research, and yeah, I realized that that's what I have. I mean, it's harmless. I mean,
It's hard. What a great way to describe it. It's harmless. It's not like I go on the street and I want to punch somebody's face. I love it. Now,
yeah,
here, when I was in my 20s, I was run over by a car and I had a very severe brain injury.
yeah,
So after the hospital and after I was, sort of out of the rehab center,
hmm,
my girlfriend and I at the time went to see a movie. Right? So
hmm,
just your story kind of reminded me of mine. So we went to see a movie. And in my case, because I had such a severe brain injury, when I went to go watch the movie, for the first
yeah,
5 minutes, I had like an inability to decode what was on the screen.
yeah,
So the music was way too loud and the light
hmm,
was too bright. And I was like looking at the screen and my brain just could not see what was there.
hmm,
And like we used to have these like visual illusion things that you'd stare at it for like these 3D illusions, and then if you stare at it long enough, all of a sudden you could see what it
yeah,
was.
yeah. The stereoscopic things.
Yeah, yeah. So in my case, it was the similar thing where I was just like, "What's going on?" And she's
Hmm,
like, "Michael Douglas is on the screen." I was just like, "Michael Douglas." So
hmm,
not what you have at all.
hmm.
Okay, so as a professor, as a teacher, how does that manifest?
Well, I always would have my students, they'd be sitting at their tables or desks, and I would tell them to make a little name tent and then write their
Ah,
name on it. And so, different
right.
kinds of strategy. Another thing too is I'm really good at recognizing voices.
Okay.
So often somebody will pass me or see me, and there's subtle cues like they'll raise their eyebrows, and so I'll be thinking,
Hmm.
okay, so this person must know me, and I'll say, oh, hi, how are you doing? And then they'll speak, and I'll go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this is Jonathan. You know,
Right. Right.
I mean, if somebody has very noteworthy something, if they have a big beard or something like
Yeah.
that, or hoops in their ears, things like that, that helps. But
Yeah.
if they don't, yeah, it's very. I mean, I was dating my now wife for months before I could recall what she looked like in my head.
Dude, that is the stuff of so you say Borges or do you say Borges or how do you say
I think it's Borges. It's with a G,
Borges?
Borg. Yeah, but
Yeah,
Borges.
Borges. So what you just described of not I don't know if it's Gabriel Garcia Marquez or if it's a Borges sort of a short story, but it's got that feeling to it of like, yeah,
Yeah,
I dated her for a few months before I really got a sense of what if I could actually remember what she looked like.
yeah.
So is it that you oh man, Mark, you it's just like so okay. Yeah, okay, what like you what a trip. Like okay, so for as far as your kids then,
Yep.
how does that manifest for them? How do you explain it to them?
I don't know if I ever did actually sit. I mean, they know the word prosopagnosia and face blindness. I've said that to them, but I don't think I ever sat them down and said, you got to know this about me. When I'm with somebody long enough, years. I mean, I recognize our kids now, but
Yeah.
what sometimes happens too. Let's say some extended family members on my wife's side. If I'm trying to think of one of her cousins,
Hmm.
an image of someone will come into my head, and I will know that it's not the right person, but I will also know that that person kind of resembles the other person in a way. And often it can be in a really subtle way, like a similar shaped head or something like that. And I I'll try and try, and I just can't shake the wrong image. I have to kind of
Hmm.
stop trying.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll answer that question in a different way because, like I say, this is a harmless condition, if that's the right word to have, prosopagnosia. But it is a neurological atypical or an atypical neurology or something like that. But my eldest son, Brandon, he has Asperger's syndrome, and so we talk about how he is atypical. Because I think that's the
Right.
best way of you know
Yep.
calling a
That's
spade a
it.
spade. And so I think it's been helpful in that way. And he has such gifts too. I mean,
Hmm.
I think I have some gifts that I wouldn't have if I didn't have prosopagnosia. Like I think some parts of my brain that maybe normally would be devoted to recognizing faces, I use for other things. You know,
Absolutely.
and Brandon is like that too. He's got a tremendous memory for facts and cultures.
Yeah.
Loves to learn words in other languages and things like that.
That's
And
fantastic.
all of our kids, well, I guess every kid, but I think our kids maybe a bit more than others are neurologically atypical. So our daughter
Okay.
Seika is an amazing artist, an amazing visual artist. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Okay. Now, is this your photograph? It's a panoramic shot
yeah.
of. Um, so, is this of the prairies that you mentioned earlier?
It is.
Big sky,
Yep. This is
just
Saskatchewan,
amazing.
um, but it's not the part of Saskatchewan where I grew up. Where I grew up, everything is
Mm.
flat. I mean, here, as you can see in this
Ah,
photograph,
slight rolling hills.
yeah. But it's about a 2.5 hour drive from where I grew up, and it's an area that's known as the Big Muddy.
Okay.
And there's not really farming there. There's mostly ranching. It's
Okay.
it's kind of it's famous in history, this part of Saskatchewan, because it's where outlaws like Jesse James and I don't know Billy the Kid, when things got too hot for them, down in South Dakota and so on, they would come up across the border into
Oh.
what is now Canada. They would hide out here, and you can actually take a
Okay.
tour, and you can find these caves where these outlaws hid. It's
Oh
really
wow.
kind of neat. But I mean, the main thing is this is beautiful. I mean, this is like
It's yeah. There's something okay, so basically the way it's shot is it's almost 50-50 of sky and land. The
mhm,
land is kind of this sort of brown grass. And it's very gentle rolling hills, very, very gentle. You can
mhm,
just make out a road, like a dirt road that's
yeah,
kind of snaking through this one part. The sky is this perfect blue, and it's got some slightly cumulus like white
mhm,
clouds. It's very
yeah,
dramatic. It's very contrasty. It's done. It's probably shot late morning, or it's high, not quite high noon. Well, maybe high noon because the clouds, the shadow is basically of a sun that's way above, just pretty much straight over the clouds.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great shot. So, here's the question I'm asking myself, Mark. I think we were introduced by your publicist. Is that
Yeah, I think
possible?
so. Yeah, yeah. Mickey. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So the question now I have to ask,
Hmm.
do you have a book, or do you have a record, or what are you publishing? What are you trying to promote? How can we
Well, I
get
mean,
people to learn more about you?
I'm just happy to talk. But yeah, I guess the premise for this chat with you is I recently published um, a young adult dystopian novel set in northern Ontario called The Headmasters. And
Mark, you buried the lead. What are you doing? What have you done?
I mean, the dogs again, just barking for a sec.
It's all good. It's all good.
Uh,
So okay, wait, okay. If I may help you, what is the name of your book that we would like people to get?
it's called. Hey, Jasper.
Whoa, hi pup.
It's called The Headmasters, and the premise. It's actually got a lot to do with memory. The premise
Okay.
is these creatures appear and become attached to the back of humans and insert sort of coils into their brains. And so for about 18 hours a day, they have control of humans, but 6 hours a day, they don't. And the
Okay.
headmasters have been around for about 60 years. And every time, one human dies, that headmaster gets passed on to a new human. And
Mm.
I guess by accident or something, or it's not intended, the memories from that first host also get passed on to the next host.
Ah,
And so
right.
there's like this accumulation of memories that happens. So yeah, the novel is about memory, and it's about a young female protagonist. She's 12 when the novel begins, and about 20 when it ends, and her struggle to overcome these creatures by drawing upon
Right.
some memories that she's acquiring. Yeah.
That's so fascinating. Like, okay, so is this your first book, first novel? Not your first book, because but is this your first novel?
Yes, my first
It is.
novel. Yeah, but yeah, I wrote four
Congratulations.
non books of nonfiction before. Yeah, it felt really good. I mean, I've written another novel since then. I've completed one, but I haven't started sending it out to publishers or agents yet. And I've started a third one. And they're all what I like
Oh
is
wow.
they're all quite different from each other.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, what's great about your name is it's very memorable. Mark Morton. Mark Morton. Easy to remember. Mark Morton. You wrote a book. Your novel is out.
I'll just tell you one other thing about my name. Sometimes people by accident or intentionally, they're emailing me or writing me a letter, and they will leave out the T in my last name. And it's an important T, as you can,
Okay.
because without the T, Dr. Moron. Uh,
Yes.
that has happened.
I'm sure you've gotten some good mileage out of that one.
Yep. Yeah. But sorry, I
Uh,
interject.
okay. No, listen, man. We're just talking. We're just
Yeah.
talking. You got this. You got this novel out. You're clearly not a. So it's one thing to study 16th century
Yeah.
literature,
Hmm.
and then to really dive deep into that
Yeah.
for your PhD, and then to kind of say, okay, well, I'm going to go and do a different kind of writing, which is
Hmm.
going to be more of a novel.
Yeah.
And why did your brain shift to go from nonfiction into fiction, into
Yeah.
creating new worlds?
Two reasons. One was, having raised these four kids and reading lots of stories to them, and eventually reading with them lots of young adult fiction, and really getting
Hmm.
into that genre. And I think, in particular, the Hunger Games. I read that with the kids, and I thought, wow,
Yeah.
this is really really good. I wish I could write this. The other thing was that as one gets older, I'm pretty sure you're not there yet. I'm 60, turned 60
Okay.
2 months ago, and again,
Oh well,
bringing it
happy
back to
birthday.
memory changes. I don't have the memory that I used to have. Like, to write the kinds of nonfiction books that I wrote required me to keep track of a lot of data and information in my head all at the same time. I can't
Hmm.
do that anymore. But on the
Mm.
other hand, I think it's kind of like an impressionist painting. When you're really close, you can see all the little dots, all the little pointillism stuff. But when you step back, you can see the bigger picture. And that's kind of what I feel like
Hmm.
has happened to me. I don't have that really retentive memory anymore, but my imagination and my ability to think of stories at a big level, I think, has improved.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah, I think that's why I shifted to fiction. Yeah.
It's interesting to me that you see the task of my podcast, which is send me four photos that will frame the conversation. Great. And sometimes, like, even if, like, some people overthink it,
Hmm.
some people, and then what I usually say is, even if you don't know what to pick, just pick
Hmm.
whatever, because ultimately it's from your life and it's going to be a reflection of what's important
Yep.
to you. So in your case, I don't know what process you went to, and it's funny how your novel is almost like this. It's like this thing that was like where I was like, hey, can we, like, can we? put a spotlight on that. But okay, so first photo is of you with your
Yep.
four kids, and that opened an
Hmm.
incredible door. The second photo is of one of your
Yep.
four dogs and the connection to
Hmm.
your kids. Another like amazing
Hmm.
door. Then there's the photo of the reflection showing like I think it in a weird way it it represents or opened the door really to how you
Hmm.
see people, right? Like your
Yep.
interface on people, right? Like in terms of how you construct a person's identity more by voice
Hmm.
than by
Hmm.
sight,
Hmm.
perhaps. I don't know. And then the last photo is of the
Hmm.
sky, the big sky. But yeah, so how do we turn that sort of narrative into like okay, as
Hmm.
an instructor,
Hmm.
right, as a teacher, how do we what do we give next? So one, I'm
Yep.
telling people to go get your book, but also in terms of your narrative, in terms of your little
Yep.
story right now, how do we kind of wrap it up so that a person goes like, ah, got it.
Well, again, I'll take two different approaches to this. One is, you
Please do.
described the sequence of four photographs that we looked at, and yet I think also if we had looked at them in a different sequence, I suspect our conversation would have gone in different directions. And so I mean that's one of the
Absolutely.
great things about conversations is how they can take different directions. In terms of, I don't know, sort of a through line or a, I don't know, moral of the story kind of thing. I guess to me, it's all about relationships, and that can be
Yep.
relationships with family members. With the last photograph of Saskatchewan, it's my relationship with that land, with that kind of topography. That's really important to me. I lived in Ontario for
Mm-hmm.
20 years, but I still miss the prairies so much. I miss that land that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And with the more abstract one, the window reflection, the relationships between the different layers within the photograph, and then the one with the dog with Layla, yeah, it's that relationship with, I guess, the non-human. But I mean, I don't want to. That almost makes it sound like they are lesser, but relationship with different kinds of creatures.
Yeah.
And I mean, lots of people love cats. I like cats too, but to me, there's something about dogs that, as you were saying earlier, every dog is different, and the relationship one can establish with a dog, every dog is different.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I love about them. I mean, dogs are just pure. What you see is what you get, and we
Yeah.
learn a lot from them.
No, for sure. Okay, so Mark, the title of your book one more time, please. The Headmasters, available on your
Say
website.
headmasters, as in in British schools, they have a headmaster. Here, it's kind of not a pun really, but
Yep.
because they are attached to people's heads.
This has been really great. It's always going to school with my guest, right? Like, okay,
Yep.
what am I gonna learn about this time? And first of all, respect, brother, fellow Canadian. This is great. I think that is something that is, as I said before, the
Hmm.
cadence of how you
Hmm.
speak, your accent, what you talk about, where your attention is,
I agree.
so very Canadian, and it's great. It's comforting. Any last bit of wisdom you'd like to hand over? For me, the one bit of wisdom is to go get your book. That's it.
Or not. If your listeners would rather go take photographs, do that. Do whatever is going to feel meaningful to you. I hope people read my book, but more than that, I hope people just find meaningful things to do in their lives. I want to say too, I've loved this conversation. This is exactly the kind of chat that I love to have. And if you're ever in this neck of the woods in Canada, let me know and we'll go for coffee or tea or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I've hitched through Kitchener, past Kitchener a bunch. Look, have a really great evening. You're a good, in the sense of good. Like you're a good man. You and
Thank
your
you.
wife are good people. Your families are
Thank you.
great
Means a lot.
family. And thank you so much for sharing.
I've really loved it. Okay. Thanks, Fran. Okay. Take care.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
Oh, baby, I like